So very good morning once again, and we're starting our morning with a very power-packed session today. We've got Sushant here, who's joined us from Starbucks, and honestly, if I've seen somebody as a brand building the right culture for coffee in India, it's been Starbucks. They've really brought the whole movement of coffee to India. Not only have they expanded themselves and really touched the corner and pretty much every mile of the country, which they're working towards as well. It's WIP. But at the same time, what they've done is given a lot of opportunity and probably to reach out and build a larger coffee culture in India as a whole. Sushant, I'm going to ask you this first question, that not just in India, but globally we have seen that, whenever Starbucks sets foot into a country and when they start expanding and opening stores in a country, a whole coffee culture is built. So, how do you make that possible? And how do you bring that real culture and, a home out of home kind of feeling for people to step into a coffee shop and really enjoy that cup of the beverage out there, the brew?
Right. I think you're right. I think Starbucks has done this again and again. It did it first in the US, and then as the brand moved, today I think the brand is available across 100 plus markets, and they have done it again and again in various parts of the world. I think the trick to it is by keeping it simple, to doing the basics right. And I think, as Howard said, it's about Starbucks is not just about coffee. People come for the coffee, but they stay back for the connection, for the warmth. So it's about the third place experience. It's the overall experience that you create. And to do that, I think at the core of what we do is obviously give possibly the best coffee in terms of the top 3% Arabica, coffee that is sourced in a sustainable manner, crafted in a manner that is consistent across. You can have a Starbucks at any place in the world and it will taste the same in the sense in terms of the quality, in terms of the taste. And that is what helps to grow the coffee culture. But at the end of the day, it is also about our partners who then bring that warmth and connection when you get into the coffee shop. And like with every other category, I think the culture happens first out of home. People, get into a new category first out of home, then it comes to their offices, and then hopefully to their homes. And while we are a tea drinking nation and penetration of coffee is still, very, very low as compared to tea. Tea is 91, 92%. Coffee is 15, 16% in terms of penetration. Hopefully we will see one day where coffee matches the tea penetration. So a lot of headroom.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned a number of about 16% being the coffee penetration in India. So there is really a long way to go when it really comes to building the real coffee culture in India. So given the fact that, as you said, it's 16% and then there's a big opportunity. So what kind of ambitious plans have you drawn to reach out to the customers and take the 16% to maybe a 40% in the next few years? And do you also sort of see an opportunity in B2B with having Starbucks coffee being served in hotels or restaurant tie-ups, or do you see, and I know it happens globally for Starbucks, but where do you see this growing in India?
Right. I think in terms of ambition right now, we actually are around 470 stores already. We are present in more than 70 towns. And if you see, we have actually done that over the last 3 years. In 3 years back, we were around 200 stores. We were present in maybe the top 20 cities of the country. So in the last 3 years, we have expanded quite rapidly. We have more than doubled our growth in terms of the number of outlets. And as I said, in terms of cities, we used to be in the top 20 odd cities, but today we are there in most of tier 1 and tier 2 cities. We are there in places like Raipur, Bhubaneswar, Jammu. We have just opened Patna, Jamshedpur and Ranchi. So we are expanding and will continue to expand. I think we have actually stated our ambition saying that we will do 1,000 stores
That needs a round of
by
applause,
2028. My team is not too happy about it, but we have already stated it in media, so we'll try and make it.
And the B2B presence are also sort of...
So I think right now we are concentrating on the retail. I think it's important that we first establish the brand. We first get the coffee culture going, as you mentioned, give people the right experience. I think globally, Starbucks does do B2B and it's very strong in B2B in many markets. But I think in India, right now, the concentration is to get
On the B2C
on the B2C side, get the consumer used to coffee, used to the Starbucks experience, and do it right and do it well. I think once we have reached a critical mass, and then we'll think about B2B.
Sure. And having said that, are you also bringing your newer concepts to India? I mean, I remember seeing this Reserve and Roastery in New York, which is like a massive store, I think on the Fifth Avenue or one of those avenues there. So do you also plan to bring these concepts to India, these store formats to India at this point of time, or maybe in the later years?
No, I think the good thing about India and the consumer is, we have consumers across all spectrum. While coffee penetration is still low, but many of the consumers are highly evolved and they actually want coffee forward stores or they're exposed to specialty coffees. So you cannot do one or the other, and that's the challenge in any category in India. You have to cater to different segments. So in terms of store formats, we have all the store formats already present in India. We actually have our first Reserve store, which we opened last year, which is actually in Mumbai in Horniman Circle. So that's a Reserve store which has got specialty coffee. But we continue to also innovate in terms of store formats. We opened our first pet-friendly store in Jaipur the month before. We opened our first store in a metro, which is a metro store for the commuters in, again, Mumbai last month. We have drive-thrus. As I said, we have the Reserve store. We opened our first experiential stores and in Punjabi Bagh in Delhi and Dhanraj Mahal here in Mumbai. And the experiential stores are actually a new format, which is very India-specific. So they are like the Reserve store, which is coffee forward, so you can choose from 13 espresso beans, handcrafted. But they also bring Indian flavors and Indian craftsmanship to the fore. So for example, you have a Sikanji cold brew, you have a Peru cold brew, you have a Malabar latte, Malabar coconut cream latte. So the idea is also to look at what is relevant to the Indian consumer and marry that with what the brand globally stands for. And that's what we're trying to do, even in terms of format.
So basically, you're doing a lot of Indian origin brews out here, the Malabar latte, as you said, and. So, are you also doing food pairing, which is akin to what the Indian palate likes, and that goes well with the brews? So, do you sort of marry these together?
That's absolutely right. Actually, we started with the food. If you look at it in terms of the food philosophy that we have now been trying to do for the last few years, is you have the global favorites, like you have your muffins and you have your cookies and you have your croissants. You then have what we call as the national favorite. So you will have your paneer tikka roll, or you will have your sheikh kebab, some bun. But now we have also gone hyper local. So what we do is, so for example, in Cochin, we have the Malabari egg roast turnover. We actually have the Thecha swirl in Mumbai. And in Calcutta, we have the Koshamangsu roll. So, because Indians love the Indian flavor and food. So if you want to establish yourself and create that empathy and that brand love, then I think you need to do both. You need to bring the global favorites. You need to do what the brand stands for globally, but do it in a manner that connects with the Indian consumer. I think that is what will create the culture. That is what will create the brand. So, yeah.
And do you see these pairings working in in the original avatar when you look at India and Bharat together? So, I mean, obviously you created for something in mind. I mean, and India is so diverse. South India, probably the palette is so different versus a North India or a East India and so on. So how do you then make sure that, across the country you're able to reach the palette that sort of belongs to that part of the country?
So, so if I get your question right, there are two parts to it. One is the India versus Bharat. And in my mind, I don't think there is a difference.
So I'm talking about more deeper food understanding.
That's right.
I'll just rephrase it. So when you build a store in, let's say, a Kolkata versus a Chennai, uh, is the food pairing and the food offering the same in both these places, or does it vary?
No. Okay. So that varies. Because we know, you cannot treat India as one. Each district has a different taste profile and in terms of what they want. So, and that's not just for the food or the pairing. In many cases, we also find that for the beverages. The kind of beverages that people like in different parts of the country, or even in terms of age groups, and even in terms of the food hence, what people want. Some people want more the sweet stuff, someone wants more the savory stuff, someone likes the most high, spices. So it keeps varying, and you need to be on top of that. I think, and I don't think it's just us, but as I said, that if you want to operate in India, understanding this and understanding the nuances and catering to that becomes important. So the way we would do it normally would be that you will have, let's say, a battery of 30, 40 food items, which, as I said, would be the three broad groups. And then the store manager actually understands it by locality. So, for example, we have a store here, BKC1, which is, because it is in an office complex, the food that a lot of people have the breakfast here or they come for lunch. So he will order the food that, so a lot more of the sandwiches, lot more of the freshly assembled stuff. But let's say if you're going to Horniman Circle store where there are more of families or kids who come in the afternoon, he will order more of the cookies or the desserts, the New York cheesecake and stuff like that. So that's the kind of fine tuning that you need to do to ensure that you cater to your consumers and get that
That's
right.
a lot of work.
It is, and I think thanks to the partners, they do it every day,
Right.
and they do it well.
Yeah. No, I think that's the way to go. So I also see that there are a lot of interesting brand collaborations that you do to bring that excitement. So I actually was, when I opened in the morning, I talked about, why it's important for retailers to, vibe out the excitement that is around there. So I was talking about the Dua Lipa concert, which is happening. So, but you've been doing it with so many designers. You've been doing collections with movies and, with Disney and with Manish Malhotra. So how do you plan that? And, and I mean, I think Stanley was also something that we featured in our magazine, which you did. So how is it that you plan these collections and, what sort of makes you feel that, okay, this is something that's going to work? I don't see a lot of restaurants and food brands actually doing so much in India about that.
So I think there are two things. One, obviously, I think it's just that we have a great brand, and it is thanks to all the people before me who have created the brand. So a lot of people do want to get associated with you. So I think we have that advantage, and we need to recognize that. But in terms of how we plan, I think globally, Starbucks has done this for many years now. And they do it with popular culture, they do it with designers, they do it with movies. So, for example, if you look at in the last year and a half, we have had a tie-up with Disney. We have had a tie-up, right now I think in the stores you have a tie-up with Wicked, which is the movie which has just got released. So you do these, and this is expected because a lot of people, this is a global launch, so a lot of people see this merchandise or this collaboration and hear about it in social media, so they expect it to be in your stores. I remember last year, and I don't remember the brand well, I'm not the TG, but there was a Korean brand that globally there was a tie-up, and we didn't bring it to India. We got a huge amount of backlash from the Gen Z saying that, you're not giving us the same treatment and stuff like that. So you need to be conscious of that. But we have also started doing it in India and we have done this twice now. We did a tie-up last year, which was the first time that we did it. We did it with Sabyasachi. It was a huge success. We sold out, I think, within a week, 10 days. We repeated that this year with Manish Malhotra. Again, that's managed to do very well. So there's something that, and again, it is part of the larger plan in terms of trying to create a brand where people can empathize and love and do more from an Indian point of view. So there are a lot of elements to this. It be the food, the beverage, the store design, the tie-ups that we do. So yeah, we will continue to do that and have this mix of the global tie-ups and bring them to India and do specific India tie-ups.
Sure. And just in continuation, how do you also, and I mean, this is all, because of the digital ecosystem. So, if you have a BTS there and not a BTS here, then it brings that difference. So, but how do you create a lot of digital engagement with your customers? I know the app works very strongly where you can pre-order and pick up your drink. But otherwise also, how is it that you create a more stronger digital engagement with the customers, and how do you ensure that the loyalty and the customer loyalty is always achieved through the digital as a digital powerhouse?
So, I think the challenge is not about creating the digital ecosystem. I think most brands these days cannot but create a digital ecosystem. I think the challenge for us is slightly different. Like many of us know, Starbucks is about the third place. And that is how Starbucks grew as a brand. You had your home, you had your office, and the third place where you could be yourself, where you could connect, was the Starbucks store, where you also got your coffee. So it was about the warmth and the connection. Now, when you go to the digital world, which we call the fourth world in a sense, how do you keep the same warmth and connection? That's the challenge. It becomes very difficult in a digital media to replicate that love of the partner where they call out your name saying, Ritu, your drink, or that eye contact, or that smile, right? So that is what you're trying to do. I think it is not something that we have cracked completely. It is work in progress. But in terms of how do I replicate the store experience, so if you go to our app, it is not just a transactional app. It has much more. It tries to replicate. It actually calls out, the same thing as a barista. It'll tell, hi Ritu, welcome. Do you want your regular? So AI and ML has helped us a lot in terms of customizing. So it will actually look at if you're a rewards member, what your regular order is. It will look at what the weather is. And it will actually tell you, Ritu, do you want your regular Americano, or can I suggest cold brew given that the weather is very hot? So things like that, which we are trying to do, as I said, it'll still take some doing, but that's the idea. But there are a lot of things that we do in the digital world, other than obviously social media and the engagement, and that again is thanks to the power of the brand and a lot of youngsters wanting to engage with us. But we have our Starbucks rewards program, which is huge. We have more than 3.5 million loyalty members. We have MOP, which is mobile order and pay. We have just started our own delivery, so you can order on the app, get your rewards, and it's in Mumbai only right now, but we'll go pan India very soon. We obviously are with delivery. We have actually just started working with Swiggy Bolt, where you can get your coffee in 10 minutes. So, yeah, so a lot of stuff in that space overall.
I think that's great. And do you, I mean, while I know this might be pre-elementary, but have you sort of done some kind of mapping as to what kind of digital ordering do you get versus store ordering? I mean, have you ever done a mapping of that?
Oh yeah, like our mobile order and pay, where you can digitally. So delivery for us is around 13-14% of our business, and in terms of people digitally ordering, I think it's 1 or 2% in the store where they don't go to up to the barista or to the POS, but do their own ordering and takeaway. I think that takeaway culture in India will take some time. That will only happen when coffee becomes a habit. Today, people come to the store because of an occasion. They are meeting a friend, or they are catching up for office work and stuff like that. So, for them, it is not like I want a quick takeaway and I will go. So that culture will take some time to come in. But yeah, so right now I would say very small in terms of actual mobile order and pay.
Sure. And finally, before I open this for the audience, do you feel that there are some global learnings which are happening now for Starbucks, in not just in US, because that is of course the hub, but in other emerging markets, even Asian markets like Japan or Korea or some other markets which you're bringing to India, and how is it sort of then combining to become a Starbucks not just as a US brand but as a global brand?
Oh, absolutely. I actually 6 months back spent quite some time in Shanghai, trying to understand, because China went through a very similar journey. They are again a tea drinking nation. Primarily, they grow a lot of tea, and they 2011, 2012 started moving towards coffee, and that is when Starbucks started growing. In fact, Starbucks created that culture. There was no other coffee brand at that point of time. Today, it is the second largest market for Starbucks, has 7,000 stores. Just Shanghai has 1,100 stores. Yeah, that's the kind of scale that has been achieved in the last 12 to 13 years, 14 years, right? So it was interesting to see as to what are some of the things that they did in terms of how they went about creating this coffee culture. How did they create demand? Because the job for us is not, and for them is not about that people already drinking coffee or drinking in a certain way and to bring them to the store or to gain share from a brand. For us, if we need to grow, we need to create demand. I need more people to drink coffee for me to open more stores, right? So it's about demand creation. So that's exactly what China did. And so a lot of learnings. I think some of the stuff that I was talking about, for example, we just did a large 360-degree on Diwali to celebrate Diwali, where we, for the first time, had, we do Christmas normally, which is, everyone looks forward to Christmas and in a Starbucks. But we did exactly that or more in terms of we tied up with Bombay Sweet Company to do a full range of desserts. We did merchandise, we did coffee, we used saffron because that's what, in some ways, Diwali celebration, it stands for that, and created a whole slew of beverages. So that was one of the learnings in China, that you need to ingrain yourself in a lot of local culture, reduce the barrier. People should feel comfortable to come to a Starbucks because, frankly, we have all grown up knowing cold coffee, hot coffee, right? In a sense. Suddenly you go to a Starbucks and you see, first is size, venti, grande, then you see a cappuccino, latte. It's confusing for many of us for the first time and intimidating. So first is, how do I break that barrier and make it more comfortable? So I think those were some of the things that we realized how China has done it, how Korea has done it. Korea is a huge coffee market right now. In terms of per capita consumption, they are the largest in Asia, but they also had a journey which went there. So a lot of learnings in terms of how they have done that. Also a lot of learnings in terms of product innovation. So for example, one of the things which we launched last year was what we call Refresher. Refresher is a non-dairy, fruit-based and has green coffee. A huge success with the Gen Z. Because it's colorful, more Instagrammable, and a lighter drink, which is what the Gen Z wants. And we saw that being a huge success across the Gen Z in many parts of the world. So we brought it into India.
No, I think that's great, and I think we're living in a world which is like a crossover of cultures. So we've got people traveling all the time. I see, I was in a small place called New Haven, where there's Yale University, and I met more Indians there than I met sometimes meet out here in Delhi. So yeah, that's what it is. So people, they are traveling all over, and therefore they like to retain those same values coming from the brand. Happy to open. Have some questions from our audience out here, and maybe a raise of hand. Yes, please. Can we pass on the mic to the gentleman? Quickly, if we can just take the mic to him. Sir, please introduce yourself before you ask your question. We'll take 2 questions in interest of time.
Hi, hi Sushant, this is Mayur representing Netcore. So quickly come to the question, while you're talking about consumers and consumer behaviors, you might also be looking at competitors, right? So just a quick question around what are your thoughts for third wave coffee, at least in the Indian market?
Like I mentioned earlier, for us right now in India, there's so much of headroom. We have a coffee penetration which is 16-17%. So I think the job for us is not about being worried about competition or to look at competition in that sense. I think more competition is better for us because it will help the competition to grow. It will help the category to grow faster. So we welcome all competition. All competition is good. As long as we continue to do what is right, what we believe in is the right thing to do, and we do it from what the consumer wants, I think we are in a good place. So we are more concerned about what we need to do.
Great. So has it anyway impacted your churn or your marketing budget?
No, as I just said, we concentrated in terms of doing what we need to do, and I think that's what we are doing.
Great. Thank you so much, Sushant.
So on a macro level, I feel, with more players, the market always expands. So it's actually a good thing that really happens. One more question, sir.
Hello, sir. My name is Sai Prasad. I am also a beverage brand. We are in the FMCG segment. My quick question to you is, sir, that we are also trying to redevelop our packaging and all. So, what are the things that we should consider when we are actually redesigning your packaging or branding in a traditional space, so that the communication is right? How do, from your experience from TCPL everywhere, how do you guide us?
That actually is my comfort area. I have done FMCG and beverage marketing for 20 years and retail actually only for 5 years. So that's a more comfortable question to answer. But packaging, I think there are two parts to packaging. You need to clearly communicate what your brand stands for, and you need to do it in a simple language, because it is not an audiovisual medium, and people get to see it just for that 30 seconds, 1 minute. And most of Indian retail are the kirana stores, right? And in the kirana store, the packet will be kept 10 feet behind where there's hardly any lighting. So the first thing is that it needs to catch attention. Pastel shades and stuff like that look very nice on a PPT in the conference room. They don't look nice when the packet is there in a small town in Orissa or Bihar. So you need to ensure that, and Indians like bright colors. So my learning, it should stand out, bright color, and it should tell you in that one thing quickly within those 15 seconds or 20 seconds what the brand stands for.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, we'll not have time for more questions, but we have a special moment right here, Sushant. As for building that coffee culture in India and for really taking the coffee moment, bringing it first to India and now sort of expanding that moment, we've also got Sushant on the cover of the 2025 Retailer magazine, which will actually be launched in January 2025, but we're launching it here because Sushant's joined us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to, if you can please come forward and unveil the cover for us.
So ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the upcoming special issue of Retailer magazine.